You're listening to the Dissecting Discovery podcast with your Fountain of Thought hosts, Sunny Rain and Dennis Fountain. Resistance is futile.
This podcast may contain Star Trek Discovery spoilers, talk of Pon farr, and interspecies relations. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to the Dissecting Discovery podcast. This is episode 3. Context is for Kings. This is the podcast where we talk about Star Trek Discovery. Leave us a voicemail on our listener line at 413-612-8037. Like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at TalkFOT, or visit our website at fountainofthought.com. All right, Sonny, generalize on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best. Please rate this episode 3.
5.
A 5. Why do you give it a 5?
Because it's going in that direction that I got a feeling it's going, where it's going to be more of a Walking Dead type show rather than an episodic television show with an underlying storyline.
Well, I think you're going to be stuck with that because that's what we've been told been happening. Although this episode could be a standalone episode. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I give it an 8. I give this episode an 8, solid 8. I don't think it's as... I was really worried because I thought it would be worse. I didn't think it was that bad. You're giving it a 5 based on the feel of the show?
Okay, now that you're giving it an 8, I'll rewatch it. I'll give it another thing. But the point was, during the entire episode, I was getting disgusted. I was getting disgusted because it was like, come on, really? It's going to be like this? It's going to be this, drag this storyline along week after week after week, and we're only going to find, an hour's worth of information.
Bits and pieces here and there.
And every week we got to wait for another hour's worth of information. And I just, that's what deterred me from a lot of shows, like even Walking Dead. I mean, I'm still on where Negan bashes Glenn's brains out. Yeah. I haven't gone beyond that because I just, after a while, I get tired of this having to watch episode after episode after episode of just...
to propel the storyline a little bit.
Yeah, just, in other words, like I'm watching this one long movie.
Right.
And sometimes I just want to watch quick, entertaining episodes. And to me, Star Trek, that's what Star Trek was always about. So it's an adjustment period for me.
Yeah,
right
I don't think...
I think a lot of fans... I think a lot of fans are feeling the same way because... They're expecting what I'm expecting. They're expecting a typical
episodic television,
right? So, I mean, if they continue to make the story interesting, which I'm not saying it isn't, it is. It's an interesting story, and they throw in the twists and turns and the surprises and things like that. I think they'll hook us all at some point in time. But we all know season 1 of usually any series,
aren't that good?
They suck. Yeah. Even Walking Dead, the first 6 episodes, it baited us because it was cool to see zombies for the first time. But, other than that, it was nothing to write home about. There was nothing that just, stood out at you or
brand new TV series.
Surprised the hell out of you or anything like that.
They've got some growing pains.
Right. So, I mean, so it'll take some time. But in the meantime, I'm still an old starch.
You want episodic television.
Old starch or staunch or whatever you want to use that word. Yeah, I like old episodic television, and I'd like to see this that way, but I'm not going to, so it's going to take me time to adapt.
Okay, so let's get into the storyline here. This picks up 6 months after her sentence. We're talking about Michael Burnham's sentence for mutiny, which, again, is from the prequel about the prequel. We talked about this. We don't necessarily like prequels, but... anyways, 6 months have since passed since her 6 months have since passed since her sentence, and she's in a prison transport ship, and we see her moving along with some other prisoners, and then these lightning bugs come along or whatever, and they start sucking the juice out of the shuttle. The pilot's got to get out and scrape them off the hull. Jim, there's Klingons on the starboard bow. Scrape them off, Jim. So she's outside scraping them off, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, she gets torn away, and she's off. And then we see the USS Discovery for the very first time come in for this big reveal. I like the reveal. I like the way they did it. It wasn't just a simple, shuttlecraft. When you usually in Star Trek lore, when we see the new ship, there's a stupid shuttlecraft scene where we go around the ship 5 zillion times to see it. This served a purpose. We see the purpose of it. It uses the tractor beams. It hauls the ship in. It brings it into the launching bay, and we see the exterior of the Discovery for the first time. I'm happy with the reveal.
It was good, but I like the reveal of the other ship in the very
Shenzhou?
first. Yeah, that was so cool watching it coming out of the clouds. That was just it was just much of impressive to see in the Kelvin universe there, the second movie with Khan, when they come up out of the ocean.
Yeah.
I thought that was the balls.
Yeah, that was I did like the reveil. I thought it was
anytime you can see the stuff they promised to show us in Voyager that they never showed us.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But
so
that's me.
one of the things that I have noticed about the ship is the unusual shape of it, because the saucer section is hollow. It goes through, and I'm wondering what purpose does this serve? And I honestly don't think there is a purpose.
Air conditioning.
I think the purpose is because it has more windows.
In case you want to roll
down the window.
Well, yeah, during hot weather.
Yeah. Because you see a lot of the scenes, when they end the scene, they'll exit and the camera pulls back and it goes out through the window through space to show an exterior shot of Discovery. I think that's actually why. I think it's done for the viewer. It has nothing to do with the purpose of the ship, but I could be wrong. So back on the transport ship, we find Michael Burnham, and she's in a Starfleet prison leotard garb thing, whatever. And she's got her Starfleet insignia on, which I thought was a little weird, because I thought when you were a prisoner, you're stripped of all rank and privileges, and you shouldn't wear.
Which is correct, because that was dumb. Because anytime you go into a prison, you are stripped of rank, your name. Well, not just rank. That's military. But even any other prison, you're stripped of your name, and you just become prisoner 502976.
Right, but especially in a military prison, you've got no rank or privilege. So
you're nobody.
Right. So and that's pegging her out. I thought that was kind of weird.
Well, I don't know whose ingenious idea that was, but I'm sure that was for the dummies watching the show that didn't get, okay, we got to identify her.
Well, I just thought it was weird to have the Delta on the jumpsuit that way. It didn't seem to fit right, and I'm not going to harp on that. I got some small things to nitpick about, but that was just one of them. So now we move on, and now we come to a scene that I didn't think was necessary at all. I like the fact that they come off the shuttle, and they're introduced to the brand new USS Discovery. They hang a lantern on it, which is technical terms for meaning to say, hey, this is a brand new ship. Duh, it's not even scratched. Okay, we get that, and I can like that scene. But the mess hall scene, I don't understand. I get no purpose for that mess hall scene. It served nothing in the storyline except to prove that she knows Vulcan martial arts, which I don't understand why we need to know that. Why those other prisoners picked a fight with her made no sense.
Because you need to know that, because that is why she's being recruited.
For her martial arts?
Her special training.
I suppose, maybe. But didn't you think that these prisoners were just waltzing around the ship rather casual? I mean, they're in the mess hall. They're not cuffed. They're not anything. I mean, the head of security was there because we see her and she stops it. But they just seemed, I don't know, it just seemed like they weren't treating these prisoners like prisoners. All of them, not just Michael, but all of them. So anyways, we move on from that. We find out that Saru is there, and he has hoofs, and he likes blueberries, which I kind of liked. I think he's eating the blueberries, showing like, hey, I'm the first officer of this ship, not you. I'm in charge. You're the prisoner, not you. Like a carefree attitude. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I don't like their choice of their first officer.
Well, I don't think he's going to stay that way, but
I hope not, because I didn't like him in the first.
It's not. She's going to be the first. She's going to end up being first officer. We know this.
To be perfectly honest, I don't like his character. Period.
Oh, see, he's one of my favorites. I like him.
He annoys me.
And I like the hoofs, because usually they do. It's always Star Trek. It's always the nose or the forehead. The nose or the forehead.
Wow, yeah.
And now we got somebody that has other things. His hands are a little different, but he has hooves. I think that's kind of cool. Although we did in what was it, Star Trek 6, remember, we had the when they were looking for Chekhov and Uhura were looking for whatever, the boots. Remember the magnetic boots?
Yes.
And we saw different feet. So it has been done previously in Star Trek, but I did like that effect.
Eventually we'll see a Klingon penis. And that should scare the hell out of all of us.
Okay.
Or we're going to have a big laugh.
Okay. So they after this, they escort her to her quarters where she has a roommate, which I really loved.
Yeah, she brought levity to the program.
Cadet Sylvia Tilly, played by Mary Wiseman. She chatters a lot, talks a lot, but I kind of liked it. I liked the cadet Delta she had. They had the different background, the square, actually it was rectangle background on her to distinguish her as a cadet. I liked that. I liked her character a lot. I thought, like you said, she brought levity to the situation. It was starting to get a little boring, a little slow, a little dark, but she brightened up that whole scene and the whole show at that point. And then she talks about a couple of things. They have a couple of scenes together, and they talk about a couple of things that bring something to light. She mentions that Michael mentions that her mother, or stepmother, I guess, read Alice in Wonderland to her and her brother, which has to be Spock. It can't be Sybok because they had different mothers. So it has to be Spock that she's talking about. And mark my words, sometime in this series Discovery, they're going to bring Spock into this.
Not necessarily. No,
I think
she said,
my brother.
She said, my mother read this to me and my brother.
Yes.
Well, that's not to say that her mother didn't have multiple.
You mean that
kids.
Michael doesn't have a brother?
Well, she could have a brother. She could have another human brother.
That's not that. That's she said they were humans. That's not what the.
Okay, but
it has to be a Spock reference.
Spock is a stepbrother.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's not her mother either, and she didn't say stepmother. She said mother. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but the point is, Cyrek just took her in, didn't he?
Yeah, he's a ward. She's the ward.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Bruce Wayne.
Okay. Well, she has her own family.
She said, but that's not who she was referring to.
I know, but he said he took her in, but he didn't. Did they say when he took her in?
Yeah, we can do the math and figure it out.
Okay, but maybe when she was 5 years old, she was still
with
her.
No, the Klingons killed her parents. That's the whole storyline here.
Well, yeah, but killed her parents when how old was she?
Young.
How old?
And I think 7 is if we do the math.
Okay, well, you start telling Alice in Wonderland at 3-4 years old.
You can read it at any age.
Well, I'm just saying it.
But that scene, no.
You're reading too much into it.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
that scene says her mother, Amanda, read it to her and her brother. So Michael doesn't have a brother. It's just her. So the brother is Spock that they're referring to.
No,
and you mark my words.
No,
we're going to see Spock later on.
No,
yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
All right. So moving on from, I also thought it was a little weird that she didn't see that Tilly had stuff in her at the foot of her bed where she kept her belongings. There were things in that bed, and they argued over who's going to get what side of the bed. I thought that was a little odd too, but anyways. So now she's put to work, and she's put to work in this science lab where they're conducting these experiments that are top secret. And she goes to this section, and again, she can't get in. Now, there's another humorous part in it. She goes to get in, and someone else says that's, security clearance only. You have to use your breath to get through, which is something new for me. You have to use your breath. What happens if you have bad breath? Do you not get in that day? Sorry, I couldn't report to work today. I have simple chronic halitosis. So she goes.
I'm sorry, you're not allowed in because there's an overwhelming smell of garlic.
Yeah. So she's told to take a station, and Tilly again says, "I'm sorry, there's assigned seats." And so she's kind of muddling around, and then Stamets Lieutenant Stamets comes out from the hidden section and says, "Are you the Vulcan I'm looking for?" And she says, "Well, I'm really not Vulcan." Blah 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 blah. And then the little funny part is, "Well, we don't have assigned seats here. Just go take any station." I thought that was kind of funny. And but he gives her a code to debunk, which I thought was very humorous because in this day and age with modern technology, we can pause things, and if you pause it, you can see that what she's looking at is basically a decompiled code from the Stuxnet virus. So we learned that Starfleet in the year, 2235 or whatever, is still
using Microsoft
Windows. Still using Windows.
Windows, yeah.
Or the alternative is that he just gave her that as busy work. I mean, who knows? But anyways, moving the storyline along, we find that there's a sister ship, the USS Glenn, which I'm assuming is named after astronaut John Glenn, but we don't know, but that's what I'm going to assume.
But you know what assume means.
Yes, makes an ass out of you and me.
Please don't make an ass out of me. I do a better job myself than you can do.
Okay. So Stamets is having this conversation with his, quote, friend, which I'm assuming is going to be the gay character on the show, because we know there's going to be one. And I'm assuming that's him by the conversation tone that he was talking about with his partner. And then another part that I thought was kind of weird is that Michael comes over to the station and his friend says, "Lurker, lurker." But they're 10 feet away from each other. She can hear whatever he's saying. They're doing it in the wide open. It's not like they're hiding anything. So I thought that was a little weird to call her a lurker. But so we find out that they're doing some experiments on the Discovery and some experiments on the Glenn. They're both working for the same thing. Then a little bit later on in the story, we find out that the Glenn has been had a accident, some type of accident, and they don't think that there's any survivors, so they're gone over to investigate. So the captain comes on. Lorca, do you like the captain?
He's a little shifty at the moment.
A little shifty?
But again, I'm prejudiced against the actor because he's a fantastic actor, but he's very good at being bad.
Plays the bad guy a lot.
And twisted and just cold-hearted evil. So if he's going to play this as a good guy, it's going to take a while to warm up to him. Kind of like Alan Rickman. After you saw him in Die Hard, it took a while to accept him as, anything but...
Why a spoon? Because it'll hurt more, you twit.
Certain character actors they do that. They spend so much time being bad, and then they try to go good.
Well, I think he's going to be overall good, but I think he's going to be. There's a little bit of bad in him. I think I'll explain later on my thought process. But we're introduced to Captain Lorca for the first time. We find out that he has a recent battle injury affecting his eyes, that his irises don't open and close as quickly, so he kind of likes the dark. And I think that's a reference to Battle at the Binary Stars, where Tukovma calls for the light of Kalis. I think somehow he's involved in that, and he's subjected to the light too long that damages his eyes. So I think that might come into play later on down the road. But the one thing that I thought was really odd was he has fortune cookies on his desk. That seemed kind of weird to me, just a bowl full of unwrapped fortune cookies. It says it's a family business from 1,000 years ago. Right next to the fortune cookies is a big, fat tribble. That's the biggest tribble I've seen ever. What is that bloated tribble doing there?
Pregnant? Constipated?
Pregnant. It's got to have tentuplets or something.
Okay. Pregnant, constipated, or cancer.
Cancer. All right. So here's another nitpick for me. We know that tribbles existed other than in Enterprise. All right. In the original Star Trek, we see the tribbles on K7 on the station. It's the first time the Enterprise has encountered them because everyone goes, "Oh my God, what is that? It's a tribble," and they didn't know about them. Apparently, other people knew about them, or they wouldn't be on the station. The trader guy wouldn't be trading them. So they do exist in the universe. But that was our first look at tribbles in the original Star Trek. Now we see them on Discovery. I don't know. There's a theory that I'll get on later on why I think this might be happening. But let's move on from there, and we find out that the captain has somehow taken her and wants her to work for him because of her, as you said, special skills. She goes down to, like I said, this lab. She's in the lab working, and they get the news that the Glenn has had a catastrophe happen, some type of accident, and they need to go investigate. So they have a away mission to go on, and they bring Tilly, and the captain insists that Michael goes against the better judgment of Stamets. He doesn't want her. He doesn't like her at all. It's clear he does not like her.
That's the guy with the hoofs?
No. Saru is the guy with the hoofs. Stamets is the
it's going to take me a while.
Science officer that's there, that has the gay guy.
I don't even know who this gay guy is.
Stamets is the one they talk to in the lab, the science officer in the lab who they go on the away mission with, and he's given her the riot act about why she thinks that biology and physics are different.
And why is everybody thinking he's gay?
Because we know ahead of time that the Discovery is going to have a gay character in it.
Okay, but
and because of his discussion with his quote partner over the intercom there, we think that he's the gay character. We don't know, but we're assuming that he's the gay character.
Because I haven't picked up on that yet.
Well, I could be wrong. He may not be. But anyways, this Stamets guy they're on this away mission, and they go to the Glen, and they find everyone all warped and just mangled and all in pieces in really odd looking shapes that doesn't make any sense. And also we find Klingons aboard because they're on the edge of the Klingon neutral zone there, and we find that Klingons are all cut up into pieces. So we're wondering what the heck's going on here. And then again, they interject this funny part, which I think is probably the funniest part of the whole episode, is there's this big bad giant Klingon that comes out of the shadows that Tilly calls out, and he goes, shh. And then the security officer goes, did he just shh you? I just thought that was funny. And then this monster dog Targ thing comes out and just swipes him away, and now we've turned this into a horror episode. And they got to run from this creature. I did like this part where Michael is running through the Jeffrey tubes and trying to get away and all of this stuff. Thought that was kind of cool, and I really loved her superhero landing when she finally escapes and she lands in the... Yeah, Sonny just did it, but you can't see it. She lands in the shuttle pod, and it's cool. I did like that scene. I didn't really like her quoting Alice in Wonderland, but I can see the tie in there, so I didn't mind that. So now we're back on the Discovery, and we have to blow up the Glen because it's been contaminated and it has to be destroyed. Here I'm going to nitpick again. They blow up the ship, and I just didn't think the explosion was that worthy of a starship. I mean, when starships explode, they explode.
That's right. When you do a good explosion like you did in Star Trek 6, that explosion is so good, you use it in Star Trek 7.
In Star Trek 7? Yeah.
The Next Generation.
So good. Yeah.
I mean, how lame was that?
Remember that was. Then? Yeah, I remember that was lame. Come on. That was lame.
But everybody go like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
Has anybody got another 10,000 in their pocket? Screw it. Use the one from last film.
Yeah.
That's the respect the fans get.
Yeah, well, it's money. Yeah. So we come back to the Discovery, and the captain asks Michael to join him in defeating the Klingons because she needs to win the war that she started.
But she didn't start the war.
Well, they kind of.
No, she did not.
Yeah. T'Kuvma would have started the war no matter what.
Yeah, he had the plans to start it, and
right.
she had the plan to stop it,
right?
According to the Vulcans.
Right.
And they
have to attack first. That's
another thing that's kind of
weird.
I
disagree with you, because she asked Sarek, how did you guys stop the Klingons? How did the Vulcans stop the Klingons? And he must have told her, you have to strike first.
Okay, well, you know what? How about going back to First Contact with Picard?
Yeah.
And the Vulcans coming down, First Contact, all that. Okay. And then we have Enterprise, which happens how many years before this?
Yeah.
And we got a Vulcan serving aboard as a science officer.
Yeah.
Nothing was ever brought up about how the Vulcans knew how to...
So that was something that we didn't know. We have to learn something sometime. That doesn't interfere with canon and Star Trek at all. That could have happened. That doesn't bother me.
Are you kidding me? I went through high school with kids that didn't learn anything from grade 1 through 12. So don't tell me you have to learn something sometime.
You do have to learn something sometime. Eventually. All right. So she says no, she doesn't want to do it because she thinks he's evil and bad. And he says, no, trust me, I'm not. You don't know what you're talking about, and you like to be right, kind of like me. And before you say something that's going to be totally wrong, let me show you something. And they do a site-to-site transport to the lab. This is where I take another thing. Site-to-site transport didn't exist back then. It wasn't something that happened until generations, correct?
Yes, because they feared the transporters for years. They feared it.
They just didn't have the technology to do it.
First of all, they feared it through Enterprise. They wouldn't even put people through. They only put cargo and things of that nature. It wasn't until the end of the season was it like, I don't know what season they started using it.
On Enterprise, yeah.
But even on Enterprise, they made such a a point of having episodes of things happening that created a problem, like the reverse universe and TOS, where they ended up in some evil empire.
Yeah. We got you.
Okay, and then you get to Star Trek: The Motion Picture, where they made a big deal about showing how McCoy hated it and how he explained what's going to happen.
Yeah, those special effects were awful.
Yeah, and then later you watch those two people die in a transporter accident.
Yeah.
So, yes, there was never, ever, ever any mention of site to site. It was always... But again, the way producers look at it, just because it wasn't said that it wasn't done doesn't mean
that is true.
It doesn't mean do it,
right?
Because I mean, in their defense, they're probably going to say, "Well, to transport a person from here to a planet and transfer a person from here to their bedroom, come on, that we can do." Like that.
Well, the other thing that I thought was weird, and I hadn't mentioned this before, is back in episode 2, when they were trying to beam aboard the Shenzhou captain. They said, "I can't beam her aboard. I don't have her life signs. Without life signs, I can't beam her aboard." That was also something kind of new. That wasn't really...
That never happened before.
Yeah, I mean, I remember them looking for life signs to try to beam somebody aboard so they could get a lock on them.
Well, in this day and age, you're going to figure with DNA being so involved in everything today that you're going to lock on somebody's DNA and you're going to beam them aboard whether they're dead or alive. Yeah,
and then in Generations, it wasn't so much the DNA or anything; it was their badges. I mean, without a badge, you couldn't beam them on board. You couldn't find them. Yeah, so I don't know. It's a little weird. That's a little weird. All right, they do this site-to-site transport, and they go back to the lab, and he tells her that they use spores to move the Enterprise. They use spores to travel through the universe. That this is what their work is. They want to use these spores, which are the intricate part of the universe, which gets them from point A to point B instantaneously.
And they're full of shit.
Well, that's what they claim. And then she's in this cage type of thing, this tube, whatever, this room, and he says, "Here, look." And this was a little confusing to me because I didn't know if he actually was moving her to Romulus and
no, I think he was brainwashing her to believe this.
I don't know if it was brainwashing. I don't know. It's just hard to believe whether that was reality or not.
Well,
whether
she
really was moving.
That's some
or,
heavy
or
technology
not.
For that time period.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
compared to even going to Voyager and Deep Space Nine and all Star Trek: The Next Generation. We never had spores that delivered us anywhere we wanted to go.
But like everything else, if it didn't work and it wasn't, I mean, we've had remember back in the original Star Trek where they could cloak a ship. But throughout Star Trek lore, you couldn't cloak a ship.
No, back in the original series, you couldn't cloak a ship because of an agreement with the Klingon Empire.
Yeah, but that started that you couldn't cloak a ship because they didn't have the technology and they blah 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 blah.
But then they got the technology.
Yeah. But they said it used too much.
All of that was even completely bananas because it started with the Romulans. Romulans were the only one that had the cloaking, and then all of a sudden in TOS it became Klingons because they didn't have enough money to produce Romulan ships anymore, so they had to switch it to the Klingons. And then by the time we got to DS9, where they had the Defiant, that could cloak, and they were borrowing a cloaking device from the Romulans, and there was supposed to be a Romulan officer aboard at all times. So I guess he was only there one episode.
They couldn't afford him anymore. Yeah.
They got a lot of bright ideas that they don't follow up on.
Yeah. So bottom line is that we're assuming that Michael agrees to stay on board the Discovery because we see scenes of next week's episode, and hey, she's in it. So she must agree to stay on, and the episode ends back in the lab with Captain Lorca and the security officer, and they have somehow beamed aboard or gotten that dog creature targ thing, and it's in a detention cell or being stowed away or wherever, and we see it. And that leads you to believe, well, where did that come from? Did Lorca beam that on the Glen? Did they take it from? Where did this thing come from? It opens minds of what's really going on with the Discovery and Captain Lorca.
I don't remember. Did they call it a targ?
No, they didn't. But to me, that's what it's like. It's like a large targ. They didn't call it that
because the targ was a Klingon dog.
I know. That's why I said it looked like a. It's on all fours running around. I mean, that's
so
what,
it could have been just some scientific experiment gone wrong.
It could have been
on the Glen.
Yeah, it could have been
proven again that this is some scientific experimental wacko ship.
This is what I'm getting at, and they didn't mention this, but if you watch this scene, and folks go ahead and watch it again, you can pause it. The thing that really gets me and leads me to believe a certain aspect is they show a Gorn skeleton. Now, that is a major no-no because the Gorn is first contact with Captain Kirk.
Absolutely.
That is canon. That is even talked about in Deep Space Nine, that Kirk was the first person to ever meet a Gorn.
If it's Black Ops, like you're saying,
this is what I'm getting at.
It wouldn't be on the report.
So here's what I'm getting at. That this is I have two theories. My number one theory is this is a Black Ops Section 31 secret ship, that no matter what happens on this ship, no one else in Starfleet is going to know about this. This is
they operate independently.
Exactly. They operate independently, so you can't have site-to-site. You can't have tribbles. You can have all of these. You can have Gorns. You can have all of these things because no one else in Star Trek...
Kind of like Men in Black.
Yeah, kind of like Men in Black. Yeah,
that kind of a philosophy.
Right, that no one's going to know about it. That's my number one philosophy. My number two philosophy that's floating around somewhere in the back of my brain, and I'm not going to like it if this happens, but I'm thinking that this could all go along because the technology is advanced. There's do so many things that shouldn't happen in this timeline, that something is going to happen and cause yet another timeline. I'm thinking that's another possibility, that there could be yet another Kelvin type of timeline.
So they can continue this for years to come.
Yeah.
Possible.
That's what I'm thinking. So those are my two theories, folks. If you disagree or agree, we want to hear about it. Let us know, because we can use your input too. But that's our Dissecting Discovery for this week. The only other thing that I'm worried about is I really like the Tilly character. I think she brings levity to it. She's not perfect, if you noticed. And I'm not trying to pick on anybody, folks, because don't think I am. But when you look at, she's not, this is going to come out wrong. She's normal. She's average. I like that she's not some 7 of 9 or
right.
She's
just
a normal
everyday person.
Exactly. And I think I like the character, and I'm hoping that they don't kill her off, because you know what happens, like The Walking Dead, which is what this series is going to be. You're going to find your favorite characters aren't around next season because they're going to kill them off.
Oh, yeah.
There are going to be lots of people that are going to come and go in this series. But I really, really like her, and I hope they keep her. One final thought before I go. We haven't seen the bridge a whole lot. We've seen just glancing moments of the bridge. But did you notice I don't know, half robot, half alien? I don't know what it was that was on the bridge, kind of bluish. When Michael went to the bridge to see the captain, and Saru was there and said, he's in his ready room. He didn't say ready room, but he's in his ready room for you. And he said, and I forgot what he said the name was, so-and-so, you have the con. And they briefly showed this, looked like an android of some type, robot of some kind.
I must have missed it.
Yeah. So anyways, I think it was a good episode. I think you should rewatch it, because I think it's better than...
I'm gonna rewatch it, because I went, as soon as it started, I started a negative attitude. My mind was drifting,
and you went somewhere. Yeah,
I wasn't really paying attention, and I will review it. But until I do, this is my final thought.
Sir, I protest. I am not a merry man.
You don't have to be a merry man. All right, folks, that's going to do it for episode 3 of Dissecting Discovery. We look forward to next week for another exciting and thrilling episode of Dissecting Discovery.
long and prosper.
Up your shaft.